Welcome back to the Idaho 4 Files. I am your host, Shadow Ghost, and it is a brand new year. And for some people, a brand new year means brand new beginnings. But for me, it's just another year. But I'd like to start off this year by first thanking all my new subscribers. And you know what I noticed the other day? When I look at my YouTube analytics, it's actually kind of shocking. You see, the YouTube analytics is a tool that every content creator has, and it shows you the like and dislike ratio, as well as how many views a person got for each video and so forth. It's just a tool that they use to kind of see which content is working and which content is not working. And I normally keep this stuff to myself, but I just want to show all the support that I get from my new subscribers, and on top of that, I want to show to the contrary to the handful of people that leave these discouraging comments. I love proving these people wrong. You know, the people that act like they can't stand me and don't like me, but yet they're here after every video I drop. When it comes to me covering the Idaho 4 case, with the exception of one video, which is still high by the way, 85.7%, everything else is in the high 90s, 98.2, 99.6, 99.5, 99%, 99.6, 99.4, 98.5, 98.9, and 98.2%. 98% of you guys that watch my content in regards to the Idaho 4 case support me and send positivity and are encouraging, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. The second thing is, I've noticed that some of you guys have been going at the people who say negative things to me in the comment section, and although I'm flattered by it, I'm asking you guys to kind of like not do that if you can. I'm a big believer in freedom of speech. I don't ask you guys for a dime. All I say is if you like the video, hit the like button and share the video or hype the video. But when a person watches a video, that's currency on YouTube. And I look at my channel like an establishment. These are reoccurring customers. Who cares if they say they don't like me, they can't stand me, they don't support me? They are paying for the service. Every time I drop a video, it's the same people saying the same thing. And on top of that, I keep telling you, when I get back home sometimes, I'm exhausted and I don't even want to make any content. And then one of these weird avatars will come out of left field and say something stupid. And the next thing you know, I'm grabbing an energy drink and I'm like, oh yeah? Well, I'm gonna give you some content then. And don't worry, because I got something for these people today, and I know they're gonna watch. And since they're always saying that I'm always throwing around these narratives or I'm just giving an opinion and just insinuating stuff, I'm gonna hit them today with some irrefutable evidence. So with that out the way, let's jump into it. I believe God has given everybody a gift or a certain set of skills, and he gives it to them at birth. And sometimes people could take years until they finally figure out what they're good at. And for me, I think God gave me the gift of research or just curiosity. For instance, I learned how to build gaming PCs and I didn't even go to school for computers. And that's not to say anything like I'm trying to flex or anything like that, because I don't think you got to be super intelligent to learn how to build a gaming PC. All you have to do is find out what each component does. I had to find out what a CPU does, what a GPU does, what's the difference between a SATA 3 SSD and an NVMe SSD. And I also had to find out how many watts I needed for my power supply for the certain type of PC I was trying to build. After that, I got my RAM and I got my motherboard, and I bought the rest of my components off of this content creator that was teaching people how to build gaming PCs. And after that, I built my first gaming PC. All these things will help me, especially later on down the line when I start trying to do an investigation. I would then take the same approach when I would start my channel and talk about boxing. If there was an important fight coming up, I would look into the fighter's background to see if he has any health issues or any reoccurring injuries. I would then take a look at how he fights stylistically. Is he an orthodox? Is he a southpaw? Does he do well against defensive fighters that apply pressure? Or how well he does against a fighter that moves their feet a lot, or is a good counterpuncher. I would even check to see if that fighter had recently switched trainers, because trainers can have fighters do different things in different training camps. I would also check to see how many jabs he throws per round or how many power punches he averages per fight. I would even go as far as to look into their relationships to see if that fighter is having any problems with his girlfriend or any issues with his wife, because that could seriously throw him off mentally right before a big fight. So whenever I had a debate and I would bring all these statistics and all these numbers and I'm going back and forth with the person, and a lot of times they would feel like their back is against the wall, and instead of trying to articulate themselves properly, they would just start to get offended and start hurling insults at me. Some of them would even threaten me. And the crazy thing is, I see similarities between boxing and the true crime genre. People do the same thing, they just do it in a different way. You guys know I'm not a narcissist and I love to interact with you guys. So sometimes I'll see somebody say that I'm wrong and I'm like, really? I want to know where I'm wrong at. And this person, I'll go to the comments, and this person follows up with an insult, even though they watch all my videos and are interacting with me in the comments section. And this is what I mean. People get so emotional, they push logic to the side and they look at all these inconsistencies and they don't care because they feel that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. And I got no problem being wrong, but just know that I have every single document for this case printed out and have a physical copy. And I've been reading about this case for months on my spare time. So if you're gonna say that I'm wrong, I suggest you have a copy of that document on hand, and it sounds something like this. Hey Shadow Ghost, I think you're wrong in regards to the ISP report sequence number 13 on line 12 on the second paragraph, and show me exactly where I went wrong. Because if you don't, then your accusation and what you're saying to me has no weight to it. It's no different than you saying you don't know shit about boxing. It's the equivalent to that to me. And that's okay if you haven't read the document or you haven't gone over the evidence, but I just find it hilarious that when I click on a lot of these people's name, they don't even have a channel and they haven't spent any time going over this case, yet they want to harass other content creators for pointing out the inconsistencies. Make no mistake, there is a good reason why you don't see other mainstream outlets downloading these documents and trying to prove all of us other Idaho 4 content creators wrong. Because if they were to do that, they would come across irrefutable evidence that goes against the mainstream narrative. And I'm not just talking about inconsistencies from people's accounts of what happened that night. I'm talking about lab results, forensic results. You're even gonna find yourself questioning Ann Taylor and wondering, why did she allow Bryan Kohberger to plead guilty? I also want to make it clear that I am aware of my past and my life experiences. I understand that there are things that might have me looking at law enforcement in a different way. I don't let what happened between me and the Patterson Police Department in regards to my father's investigation influence me in any way. It's not fair to other law enforcement agencies. It's not fair to other victims in other cases. So I'm not that shallow. I know some people probably think, well, I just look at all law enforcement in a negative way. No, it was that specific detective, that specific precinct at that specific time. And I'm also currently looking into other cases where I've actually changed my mind towards the end of the investigation. I'm going to be showing them in upcoming videos just to show people that I have an open mind. I don't just prejudge everything and just go, this person's guilty, this person had something to do with it. I literally follow the evidence, and I'm going to be showing you cases where I was doing all these zigzags where I thought I knew what was going on, but in the end, I ended up in a different direction. I would never protect a killer or a murderer if I actually felt deep down inside in my heart that they actually committed these crimes, nor would I think my videos could get them out of prison. People judge people in a hypocritical manner. I've seen some people say that they don't like that some content creators are covering this case and that gets them upset. If you have a problem with us covering this case, then I guess you have a problem with Hulu, Netflix, or maybe even the Oxygen channel. And they have true crime shows like The First 48, Evil Lives Here, American Monster, True Detective, On the Case with Paula Zahn, The Devil You Know, Nancy Grace, Forensic Files, Dateline. I can keep going. And most of these have paid actors. These are big networks making a lot of money off of real things that happen to real people. I think it comes down to emotion. You don't like that we're covering this case because deep down inside you feel Kohberger committed this crime. As I've stated before, there's a reason why you don't see people like Ashley Banfield, Nancy Grace, Vinny from Court TV reviewing the documents and showing the public what the results were in regards to the lab and forensic testing conducted at the crime scene. Instead, they focus on things like Bryan is complaining about the food he's receiving in prison, or look at this footage of him walking in Costco. Look, he took a butt selfie. None of these things are evidence. It's just the media trying to portray this man in a strange way. And who cares if he's strange? I'm strange. That's not a crime. Being strange isn't the same as being a murderer. Let's address the elephant in the room. People always bring up, well, Bryan Kohberger pleaded guilty. That should tell you everything you need to know. The truth is, that doesn't tell me everything I need to know. If you're familiar with true crime, then you're probably familiar with the Innocence Project. It's an organization that focuses on wrongful convictions. What people may not know is the Innocence Network is a large coalition of over 70 independent organizations, including the main Innocence Project, working to exonerate the innocent across the US and internationally. And they do things like offering legal aid and advocating for justice system reform. There's many others like the Exoneration Project. They provide legal services, forensic testing, and advocacy to free the wrongfully convicted while addressing systemic issues. You even have things like After Innocence. They offer comprehensive re-entry and support services, housing, healthcare, and benefits for people that have been exonerated after they get released from prison. Equal Justice Initiative, they focus on ending mass incarceration, challenging racial and economic injustice, and protecting the vulnerable, often working on wrongful conviction cases themselves. And then you have the National Registry of Exonerations. This is a public database tracking exonerations for wrongful convictions. And just know that there are many others: California Innocence Coalition, Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project, Exonerated Nation, Center for Integrity in Forensic Sciences. So why am I telling you all of this? It's because I want you to ask yourself a question. Why would they have all of these networks and coalition and organizations that help people that have been wrongfully convicted? It's because wrongful convictions happen more often than you think. Let's go over some statistics. And I'm doing this because people love to say that I'm always insinuating or giving my opinion, which, by the way, that's only like 15% of my video. I usually give my opinion when needed. But let's go over some statistics. This is not my opinion, nor is it insinuation. These are real numbers from real life people, from real cases. Let's go to the Innocence Project. And just know, these are cases that they've been directly involved with. Now, I'm only going to focus on cases where the person has been exonerated by DNA. This is important because so many people have this misconception out there that DNA linked Bryan Kohberger to this crime. But the type of DNA and the way they obtained it and the way evidence was handled might not be the smoking gun as some may think it is. And with that said, let's get into some numbers. There are 375 DNA exonerees to date. There have been 37 states where the exonerations have been won. The average numbers of years served for each person wrongfully convicted because of DNA was 14. The total numbers of years served between all of these people was 5,284. The average age of each person at the time of the wrongful conviction was 26 years old. The average age that they were exonerated, 43. 21 out of the 375 people wrongfully convicted served time on death row. 44 out of 375 pled guilty to crimes they did not commit. Let me repeat that again. 44 people out of the 375 pled guilty to crimes they did not commit. 69% involved eyewitness misidentification. 34% was misidentification from cases involving an in-person lineup. 52% involved misidentification from a photo array. 7% involved misidentification from a mugshot. 16% involved a misidentification from a show-up procedure. 5% was a misidentification from a one-on-one photo procedure. 27% involved misidentification through the use of a composite sketch. 11% involved a voice misidentification. 2% involved a misidentification through hypnosis. I can't believe that one. 54% involved an in-court misidentification. 29% involved a misidentification through some other procedure, whether that was recognizing someone on the street and reporting them to law enforcement. 77% of the misidentifications involved multiple procedures. 84% of the misidentifications involved misidentification by a surviving victim. 42% involved cross-racial misidentification. 32% involved misidentification of the same person by different witnesses. 18% involved a failure to identify the exoneree in at least one procedure. But here goes the one I want you guys to focus on. Are you guys ready for this? 43%, that's almost half. 43% of these people involved misapplication of forensic science. And that right there applies to Bryan Kohberger. For the people that know so much about this case and are 100% positive that Bryan Kohberger committed this crime, let me ask you a question. How did law enforcement get his DNA? Do you know how they got his DNA? If you think law enforcement just did some forensic testing at the crime scene, put it in CODIS, and that just led them to Bryan Kohberger, you're highly mistaken. That's not how they got to Bryan Kohberger. In fact, Ann Taylor knew this. That's why when she was questioning Brett Payne, she asked him, who were you pursuing before an outside party brought you to Bryan Kohberger? Let's go to the court transcripts. Here goes Ann Taylor questioning Officer Brett Payne. When was the first time you heard of Bryan Kohberger's name? The first time I heard of Bryan Kohberger's name was in December 19, 2022. And what was that a result of? That was a result of investigative genetic genealogy that was being undertaken by the FBI. We had a phone call that evening and we were told of Bryan Kohberger's name. And before that, Mr. Kohberger was not on your radar? No, ma'am. Then we'll talk about the footage located next door at 1112 King Road, and she'll ask him questions about that. Let's fast forward a little bit, and trust me, I can show you right here. It's nothing. I'm not skipping anything to try to be, I'm trying to manipulate. That's what you guys are going to say. No, they're just talking about the footage. Let's go down. She will ask, why did you become interested in learning the identity of Bryan Kohberger? Says, I'm not quite sure I understand your question. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously one thing we had thought was a very strong piece of evidence in this case. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as a potential avenue of identifying a subject. Is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that Bryan Kohberger's DNA was on the sheath? That is not my understanding. What is your understanding? My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Bryan Kohberger was a possible source of DNA we should look into. He then goes on to explain that basically he did what he did with any other suspect. He started looking at DMV searches and doing offline returns, something called an NCIC searches. Just basically he's explaining to her how they would look into a person that they're trying to get more information on. But what's really important is what she will ask him next. She says, had you pursued evidence inside the crime scene at 1122 King? Yes, ma'am. What efforts did you make to pursue unknown male B? You have to be more specific. I don't remember where unknown male B came from. If I told you the lab report showed unknown male B came from a blood spot on the handrail going between the second and first floor, does that help jog your memory? Yes, ma'am. Why did you not pursue that person? And his answer for why they didn't pursue this person with unknown DNA is mind-boggling. He says, at this point in time, we already had received Mr. Kohberger's name. And from my understanding, entering another profile into CODIS would remove the previous one we had from the knife sheath. So if memory serves, the discussion was, we'll hold off. We'll stay with the one from the knife sheath. And if we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later time. So right there's unknown male B that he's telling you, not Bryan Kohberger, that they literally held off on looking into. But that's not even the crazy part. Let's continue. She then will ask, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Were you not aware of unknown male B until December 19th when you knew Bryan Kohberger's name? No, ma'am. I was aware of that before, yes. How about unknown male D? Again, you're going to have to be more specific. If I told you unknown male D came from a lab report from a sample of blood on some gloves outside the house, does that refresh your memory? Yes, ma'am, it does. So you're aware of that too? Yes, ma'am. So two separate male DNA is present at the crime scene. And so what is the excuse for not tracking these people down? And for the people that get emotionally upset for us bringing out this truth, I pray that it's never your family member that gets hurt or murdered or something like that. I went through it and I'm telling you right now, you live with it for the rest of your life. And so you're getting upset because people are pointing out that there are individuals at that crime scene that police just willingly chose not to pursue. And so when people ask me, why do I do this? Because sometimes I just sit back and think, imagine if it was one of my loved ones who was stabbed over 50 times, or their face was bashed in to the point where it was completely unrecognizable. Yeah, they were adults, but they were barely old enough to drink alcohol and didn't even have a chance to live their lives. But somebody thought that it was okay to run up in there and just massacre them. And people are okay with this. So are you guys starting to follow along and understand what I mean by if you download these documents and start investigating this case, you're going to start reading and things aren't going to make any sense to you? Why on earth would law enforcement not want to pursue two separate DNA profiles, one coming from a blood spot on the handrail inside the house at the crime scene, the other one coming from blood on a pair of gloves found outside the house? Why would you not want to pursue these individuals? And then the excuse given is, Well, because if we put it in CODIS, it's going to erase the last search. Does this make any sense to you guys? Would you be okay with that? How would you like it if people just said, well, the person pled guilty, who cares? Just leave it alone. Drop it. Stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. There's 2 other people that were obviously there. And they're telling you that they did not even want to look at them because somebody came to them with Brian's name. Now, what if I told you that if you download the forensic evidence, the forensic drop on Halloween, October 31st, what if I told you that if you look through that, you're going to find more evidence concerning those people and other people other than Brian Kohlberger? What would you say to that? Let me guess. Some of you will probably get mad at me. Some of you will even try to threaten me in the comments or send some more emails my way. I don't care. If you could read Cat in the Hat, yes, I said if you could read Cat in the Hat and you could comprehend the English language, then you could understand something isn't right here. They only pursued Brian Kohlberger because an outside source told them to. So let's take this journey together, because I understand some of the mindset of some of these people that are emotional. They're going to say things like this person is manipulating the evidence, or, you're making it confusing so people can't understand. So you have to break it down in layman terms. And not only that, but some people honestly just don't understand. And so that's why I sometimes do things in a methodical manner. Sometimes I use the Google Maps when I'm explaining a case, because I also want to take you there to kind of like and visualize what's going on. So I'm going to try to do that in regards to this testing. So when you go to investigate this case, you're going to need a few documents. The first one you're going to need is the supplemental narrative reports. The supplemental narrative reports come from the Moscow Police Department. The other one is the ISP reports. That's coming from the state police. So when I refer to the supplemental narrative reports, that's the Moscow Police Department. If I say I'm reading an ISP report, that's the state police. These reports differ in some ways. I'm going to show you how. When you download the Moscow Police Department, the sequence numbers are out of order. It's weird. You have to actually download everything. There's a lot of documents to download, but they're not in order. For instance, when I downloaded it, like sequence 100 was up front, and then after that was like sequence, I don't know if it's sequence 12 or 9, the one with the Rosendahl and Tinsdale plane report. I don't know if it's 9, 12, 14, but it was like 100. These numbers are out of order. When you download the ISP reports, as far as I can see, they are in order. It's more easier to understand and follow. Not only that, but the ISP reports have more information. When you look at the interview from Dylan, for example, on the Moscow Police Department, it's only a few pages. You download the one with Dylan where they interviewed her, and it's like 8, 9, 10 pages. You're also going to need the batch of photos and the court transcripts and the state's exhibit list. And there's other places where you can go. I think it's Ada County, where you could download other things if you want to look at the court hearings. You're also going to need the body cams, the interviews. I also save a lot of the broadcasts from the news stations, and also interviews with the parents and family members of the victims. You're going to need all of that stuff, man. Another thing you're going to need that is very important is the forensic drop that happened on Halloween. This is on October 31st of last year. Of all days, they drop it on that day. But this is the one that has all the lab results and the forensic testing conducted at the crime scene, along with some other things. Now, have you guys ever watched any Quentin Tarantino movies? I know that might have seemed like it came out of left field, but believe me, like I say, I have a methodical approach. There's a reason why I'm asking you this. Have you ever seen any Quentin Tarantino movies? I'm talking like Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time. I used to watch that movie all the time. If you look at the last scene when they're at the diner with John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, and Samuel L. Jackson is telling John Travolta, his character, that he had like something that happened to him when in the beginning of the movie, Jules is played by Samuel L. Jackson, Vincent is played by John Travolta, and they work for this mob boss, and at the beginning they got to pick up some money that these people stole. And while they're there, some guy is hiding in the bathroom, and he jumps out the bathroom and he just empties out this revolver, and none of the bullets hit Jules, Samuel L. Jackson's character. And I guess he's been like thinking about that all day, and he takes that as like a message from God. So when they're at the diner, he's telling John Travolta that, this is a message from God. I got to get out the business. And while they're there, these two people are going to rob the bank, right? Well, if you notice, John Travolta is still alive. But John Travolta was killed in the middle of the movie because of Bruce Willis' character. The boxer guy shot him. And that's because Quentin Tarantino's movies are in chapters. but a lot of the chapters are out of order. But if you were to put the movie in order with chapters, it would look different. The whole movie would look different. That's how the forensic drop is for me, at least. It's 2,356 pages. There's a lot of redactions, of course. And the first part of it is like the table of contents, and it's sort of like a reference chart, right? It'll show you the date that the test was submitted. And then there's like the chain of custody report that's on there as well. It'll show you the lab number, and it'll show you who submitted it. And a lot of times it'll tell you what type of test was conducted and the item that was tested, right? And so that's where it should be. And you go down and you'll see the results. And then towards the end, you start getting these emails. And the emails is between law enforcement, starting from like the night of the crime. And as the investigation continues, they'll start asking questions like, did you send that test out? Or what do you think about this? Or, you know, this person's going to come help. I think this stuff should be in the beginning. That's just my opinion. And like, for instance, you're going to see like there's this email with, I think is Jeffrey Talbot or whatever. Oh, and by the way, if I mispronounce somebody's name, I apologize. Sometimes I mispronounce names. I notice, you know, a lot of my subscribers have a lot of insight. A lot of them are smart. I love interacting with them, but some people are weird. They'll watch a 60-minute video of mine and be like, I just want to point out that he mispronounced the person's name wrong. And in the report, he said the when it said and or of. I'm like, bro, you watched a 60-minute video of me just to point out that I mispronounced a word or something. Like, you people are weird to me. But anyway, that's just only a handful of people. But going down towards the end, you got the emails. And then, most importantly to me that I noticed was, right around the end, you see these text messages, and they're looking at the tire marks outside the scene. And I'm going to talk about that maybe in this video or a future video. There's something I want to talk to in regards to that. But importantly, is right here. This is a confidentiality statement from Othram, an employee from Othram. I am an employee of Othram. My job duties at Othram require me to perform genetic analysis and forensic genetic genealogy searches. I'm aware Othram has a contract to provide in-house FGG testing for Idaho State Police Forensic Services and other law enforcement agencies in Idaho. I'm aware that they have submitted a case to Othram under the contract through Othram's online request system, and that case has been assigned, and request identification number is 21728. I agree to the following terms with respect to the assigned case, and only with respect to the assigned case. I have been made aware that the contract requires me to maintain confidentiality of the assigned case and not to release any information, data, reports regarding the assigned case to anyone other than, obviously, law enforcement. And this is important because Othram is how they got to Brian. These people are basically coming to them saying, hey, we understand we have a contract with you. You can't find the person with any of these DNA hits or whatever. We could take this knife sheath or just some samples at the crime scene, and we do genetic genealogy, and we could point you to a family member of a person that probably committed this crime. So I just thought that that should be up front, because that's how basically it's explaining how they would actually eventually end up to Brian Koberger. So I don't know why that's all the way at the end. Maybe it's on purpose or by design, but that should be up there up front along with the emails. But anyway, let's get into it. Not every single item had a picture for reference. Only some of them had pictures for references. That's why you have to use the chart. Let's get the elephant out the room and bring up the only evidence they claim that is Brian Koberger's DNA. Now, to be fair, I have to explain this correctly. They did a trash pull and they got DNA, and they say this is Brian's DNA. And the only one that they linked to Brian was item 1.1. What is item 1.1? This is item 1.1. Now, they tested multiple areas of this knife sheath, and I believe the only DNA they were able to extract was around either the button strap or somewhere around that top area. When we read it here, this is what it says. It says, the DNA profile previously obtained from item 1.1, see report number 4, matches that obtained from the known reference sample of Brian Koberger. This DNA is at least 5.337 octillion times more likely to be Brian Koberger than any unrelated individual randomly selected from the general population is the source. And this is touch DNA, And this is only on one part of that sheath, because in every other area of that sheath, it doesn't come back to him. Not only that, but nothing, everything else tested in that house, nothing came back to him. But I could show you where it came back to unknown individuals and somebody connected to this case. There's something in this house where it actually blew my mind when I found out who it was. And I'm like, why are you in the house? We're going to get to that in a second. But that's the only thing that they say linked to him. And Taylor knew this. And I don't understand why you would even have him plead guilty. This is literally the only thing they have, bro. And for you people saying that is evidence for murder, that's crazy. I can touch a cup or shake your hand or somehow. I mean, it's touch. Do you guys understand how touch DNA works? We're not talking blood. We're not talking saliva. We're not talking fingernails, skin cells, nothing. It's literally just touch DNA. And as you know, there were multiple people that came back with their blood. Their blood is in that house or was found in a blood sample. This is why something doesn't add up here. Now, the only other thing where Bryan Kohberger's name came up is on this item here. But if you notice, they don't even bring this up as evidence, and I'm going to explain why. In every sample that they give when they are talking about a person, you notice how they use these big words, octillion, something trillion, right? They have a percentage. Now, all these samples are from this item. See how big the item is? So 101.1, 103.1, 103.2, 103.3. These are all the same item. It's just different areas. It's not separate items. It says are consistent with that obtained from the known reference sample of Bryan Kohberger. The problem is, this is the only sample where it's not definite and there is no percentage. They don't say the octillion, the quadrillion, or whatever they say. They say that for every single sample. This is the only sample. It just says is consistent. And to me, that would have got nowhere. And that's why it was never really talked about. The only thing they had with the percentage was that little tiny spot around that ninth sheath, and the other areas of that ninth sheath came back to other people. And now when we take a look at everywhere else in the house, it's astonishing. Okay, I had to switch to my phone. Don't mind my room, bro. It's just a mess. I got things everywhere. I even bought a $100 mic for you guys, bro. Look at the stuff I do. I don't have to show you the reference number for these items because they don't come back to Bryan, but I just wanted to show you firsthand. It shows you where all these tests are taken from. Floor table outside the room, floor right, west bedroom, and mattress and stuff like that. All these other tests right here, Bryan Kohberger are excluded as contributors to this DNA. Go over to this test right here. The one that I showed you, and I think I showed it on the screen when I was on my PC. Now look at all of these. They're giving you all these crazy like quadrillion, right? The 101, the 103, the 103.3, they're all the same item, by the way. It just says are consistent. And that's why they never really talked about that, because it wouldn't hold up. That's like saying I look like my cousin, bro. You don't even have a percentage on that. Everything else taken throughout this crime scene, Bryan Kohberger excluded. Bryan Kohberger excluded as a contributor. Bryan Kohberger excluded. Assuming a two-person mixture, Bryan Kohberger excluded. This one right here. It's inconclusive whether Bryan Kohberger is a potential contributor to this DNA mixture. Bryan Kohberger is excluded. Bryan Kohberger is not the source of this major male DNA. And there's two separate people, guys. Again, look at this one. DNA profiles were determined to be from the same unknown male. Bryan Kohberger is not the source. Guys, this is alarming. Bryan Kohberger is not the source of the DNA from this item. Now here's where it gets interesting, guys. Watch this right here. So this one is where they're doing all these swabs, right? From the inside of the knife sheath, handprints outside the window, and then you got some blood swabs here. Number 38 and 39. All these names are redacted and some of these people are excluded, right? A lot of them were insufficient, but then you come right here, and this is what blew my mind right here. Look at this, y'all. Look at this. The DNA profiles obtained from 38 and 39. This DNA profile is 80.49 million times more likely to be John Showalter, any other person in the general population. That's also Jack Showalter, by the way, and I'm gonna show you that in a second. And then I'm like, wait a second, what items are they talking about here? And then it's 38 and 39. 38 and 39 are also known as items 264 and 261. So you have to cross-reference this, right? So over here in the ISP reports, 38 and 39 are blood swabs taken at the scene. So then I cross-reference this with the 264 and 261. I go over to the Moscow Police Department and I'm like 261, 260 right here. These are blood swabs found at the scene. And then how do I know that he's also Jack, right? So I go and look into this kid and I find that he was arrested recently in Jack Showalter, and his name is John Jack Showalter. By the way, his middle name is Rogers. Did you guys know that? Remember the Papa Rogers guy thingy? So I mean, I don't know if that's him or not. I'm not saying that that's him. I'm just saying this stuff is alarming to me, guys. This is alarming to me because even on that DNA sheet where they tested all spots of that sheet, it's just that one little touch DNA thing. That is the only thing. And touch DNA is very suspicious because I could shake your hand and you could go to the store. My touch DNA is transferred to somebody. I'm actually doing a video in the future about a person who was convicted of a crime and later exonerated because of touch DNA. And I believe a police officer was transferring evidence and somehow this person's touch DNA got on that item and they had nothing. They somehow arrested this person and they found out who it really was later on. And guys, this is alarming. Let me get back to my PC. And just for the record, I'm looking here on item number 38 and 39. I think it was 260. The two items on the 260s, and it's keeps saying that this is from the scene. It doesn't say this is Jack Showalter's house or John Showalter's house. It keeps saying from the scene. Blood swabs taken from the scene. And then it's even, when you look at the test, it's even cross-referenced with the victims' names because they're comparing the victims to this sample. And if this was taken at another location, can somebody please let me know? Because the last thing I want to do is put out any wrong information. If you know, I've never accused anybody of murder or anything. Now, with his middle name being Rogers, I found that in 2 to 3 articles. I can always put the link to the articles if you guys need it or whatever. I didn't do a background check. I'm not going to do a background check on anybody in this case. But this is just another thing that just seems very odd to me. I'm trying to find where the location is. When I cross-reference, it's showing me that it just says the swab on scene, unless there's another location and I'm not finding it. But if somebody could find it, let me know. But even without that, all the other inconsistencies is still mind-blowing. Oh, and while I'm on this subject, not for nothing, not to go left real quick, but I don't have to answer anybody's questions. Like, people asking me questions about my channel, like, where do I get this? Or, did I do this for this person or whatever? Don't worry about what I do. It's my channel. Like, you're lucky that I actually explain myself to some degree. When it comes to other people, I have to explain myself. I feel like that's my obligation. But anything having to do with my channel, I don't have to answer you anything. I don't have to tell you what I do. It's my channel. But with that being said, I just find all of this very odd. And then I keep going down into this rabbit hole, and then I find these tire marks. Going back to the documents, the same one with the forensic testing, you're also going to see that they took some, they were interested in these tire marks right here. And it says latent print processing report is approved. Nice. Any print appearing? It says no prints on the sheath, right? Sorry, not better news. So even from the beginning, they had nothing. They knew they had nothing. And then they're also interested in these tire marks. I mean, they're like really looking at these tire marks. So I go back to a video that I see with Xana. I don't know when this was taken, but she was doing some sort of video for school, and it's something I want to show you. Let me show it to you right here.
My name is Xana Kernodle. I'm a marketing major here at the University of Idaho. And I'm involved in a couple things down here, including Vandal Solutions. And this is actually King Street where...
Bam, right there. Look at these tire tracks right behind her. Let me do a close-up side by side. Now, to me, those are the same tire marks. And I'm only pointing these things out, guys, because there's just inconsistencies everywhere I turn in this case. And these people could really get mad all they want in the comments. I don't care. There's something wrong with this case. And if you want to let your emotions get in the way because you think or feel somebody is guilty, like, to me, that's not enough. I mean, I understand you don't like to feel wrong or you don't like to feel bad. But to me, I would rather be wrong and find out that I'm wrong and forget my feelings, and I would let the facts and the truth just go, because all these inconsistencies is bothersome. You got these tracks here that look like that was made before these victims were even killed. You have all those DNA tests and only one in his touch. It's not even blood or nothing like that. You have blood linking other individuals multiple people that with unknown DNA that we know that are most likely alive and walking around at this time, and they're telling you that they didn't even bother to go pursue these people because they came to them and say, hey, we could find, this person, and somehow Brian gets entered into the picture. And then, Brian pleading guilty means absolutely nothing, because if you look at the cases where people have pled guilty and you read about these cases, a lot of these people were scared. Some of them were wondering why they were even arrested in the first place. They waited it out. Not all of them pleaded guilty at first. They figured, hey, this will clear itself up. I didn't do this. And then at some point when it starts getting closer to trial and their lawyer is telling them, hey, look, I got to be honest with you. Yeah, I think I can get you off. But if you're found guilty, you're going to get hit with a way harsher sentence than if you were to plead out right now. And when your life is on the line, I mean, it's not so hard to think that a person would just rather plead guilty than to just rather take their chances with all the anxiety and everything that's going on. And I'm looking at all these inconsistencies, and then you find some things when you keep reading in these documents, things like the evidence freezer magically stopped working and they had to transfer some evidence, and a lot of that evidence got contaminated. And then let's not forget Dylan's the thing that was found in Dylan's room. I don't know if it was a sweatshirt or a jacket or something like that. Let's get to that real quick. Ann Taylor was very interested in these items because they tested positive for blood, and when she asked for them in the email, it says the defense requested items to be sent to a private lab. She wanted to have them tested, and the person pulled the requested items and sprayed them with Blue Star. And the two items, which was a coat and a blanket, both had a positive reaction. And it said that she wanted to send them to a lab for, their own lab for some testing. And come to find out that when you spray this with Blue Star, it messes it up. Like, you could find out that the test is positive for blood, but it really degrades the quality of the test. And it even states here, it says, Detective Talbot first went to examine the items to do a presumptive test. I stated we are limited in what we could do now. Blue Star is a chemical designed to use in crime scenes. All other testing is done. I stated this has a poor specificity for blood. So it's not typically used in lab for presumptive tests. And studies have shown that Blue Star does inhibit presumptive blood tests performed in a lab. We can examine it for blood, but it is likely any stains we will test will now be negative, and there's no way to determine at this point if there's even blood on the item. So the person sprayed so much Blue Star on this damn jacket, they sprayed it all over the place, that now they can't even test it to match it to anyone's DNA. Like to check if that's Dylan's blood mixed in with the victims or anybody. Not accusing her of anything. I'm just showing another example of, I don't even know if it's ignorance or incompetence at this point. I would say it's incompetence, but when you see all the other things how this investigation went and all the red flags, I don't know if this is incompetence. And I got to be careful with going as far as to saying that people, purposely sabotaged or covered things up because, I wasn't there. But I could tell you this right now. The people that judge people like me, I think they're judging me inaccurately because I'm coming at this from a good place in my heart. I just find out it's kind of crazy because I'm almost positive that the people that say these things to me in the comments and other people and the way that they judge them for actually just trying to bring truth out there is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And like I said, I pray to God that one day something like this doesn't happen to one of your loved ones or somebody that you care about, because you would appreciate people like us. We don't make money off of this, bro. Like, that's another narrative. It's like y'all act like I'm spending hours here making you guys a video that will probably get what, at the most 7,000 views. Like, come on, y'all. Like, you get these narratives out of your head. I promise you, when I go outside, people don't surround me and run up to me and go, oh, that's the guy that makes the Idaho 4 File series on YouTube. It's nothing like that. I don't get no money from this. If anything, it causes more headache and anxiety at times. Because, I'm trying to make sure that I put out right information, and I also want to make good content for you guys and everything. And also, when it comes to the John Showalter, the blood in there, I searched everywhere to see if I could find if maybe that was taken from another area. But everywhere I look, it says swabs taken on the scene. Now, they should clarify if it's not that scene, but somebody needs to show me where it's not that scene, because everything else, all those tests are from the crime scene. So if somebody maybe has another document or something that shows that maybe it was taken somewhere else, but as far as I can see, I double checked, quadruple checked, and they're all coming back from the same test. And I don't know how something like that can just be overlooked. Last I checked, that guy wasn't even at the house when Maddie and Kaylee got picked up by Eric, the driver. He totally left in another direction. Now, I know he lived very close by, as did a whole bunch of other people, which is just crazy. And I haven't gotten through all the documents, of course, but I do also remember that they were looking into Jack Decor, and I believe it was either him or Showalter where they found blood in the apartment, or, you know, supposedly he's a hunter and stuff. Bro, there's so much stuff crazy with this case, bro. It's like it's all over the place. There's also some other leads I'm following up on for future videos. And I'm going to be looking into the drug angle, people that are associated with Molly and all this other stuff. Of course, you know, you got Emily and Demetrius, and you got the frats, and there are also some other unexplained deaths that happen, which is actually not all unusual at a college. These drownings where people are found in very shallow water. That's another phenomenon that I've been looking into. So, you know, I'll try to get you guys out some more content. But yeah, like I said, I do know that there was other scenes that were tested, but they need to make it clear where this was at, because everywhere I'm looking at, it says on the scene, and these are blood swabs. And let's not forget that there are multiple people with unknown DNA which were at that scene, and we're talking blood on the handrails and blood on the gloves. And I just feel like there's so many other people that could have went to trial and had a better chance of being found guilty than Bryan Kohberger. And for the people that, you know, like I said, that are in their feelings, all I'm saying is I understand that maybe you feel like some people are trying to benefit in a certain way, but try to be open-minded. Because if I had like more evidence on Bryan, bro, I would condemn this guy. I would say, bro, you crazy? You think I'm gonna stick up for somebody who stabs in of over 50 times? You're out of your mind. I would never do that. I'm just looking at this and I'm just seeing red flags everywhere. But if you guys stuck with me for the entirety of this video, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And tune in next time when we dig deeper.